story is about this guy named Ashoki, I think is what I said. And it kind of like, it's like a story of his life, I guess, because he's from India and he like gets into this really bad accident on a train and it like kind of just changes his life forever, honestly. And then he really likes to read, and so he like wants to experience the world kind of, so he travels and he goes to America and has like an arranged marriage, and then he has a kid named Gogol, and when they're at the hospital, like when she's giving birth and everything, so they have the kid, and the doctor said that like to get released you have to name the child, and in their culture they have to get like a letter from the grandma having like a girl name and a boy name, and the letter hadn't come yet, and so they were gonna wait to name the kid, but because they had to get discharged from the hospital, they had to like name him then, and so that's when Ashoki came up with Gogol, and it's kind of like a story of Gogol and Ashoki's like relationship, I guess, and how Gogol like he liked his name when he was younger, and then like he kind of grew up and didn't really like it as much and wanted to change it. He didn't understand like where it came from or anything, and then so I guess like that's pretty much it.
Sure. So the mood of the story is pretty tense after he has Gogol, or well, the wife has Gogol, but pretty much it's not between people, but more between cultures, like American versus Indian cultures. And this is really represented through like Gogol's room, how he has posters of John Lennon and stuff that are all worn in and they're all over his walls and everything. But the Indian records that his father got him for, I forgot, it was maybe his birthday, are still in the package. They're like untouched. And then the whole idea of like the white picket fence that they described when they bought the house, and the letters on the mailbox that somebody had taken off and destroyed, and the father was kind of unfazed. But Gogol was a little bit upset because it was his name. So yeah, it's kind of just like an internal tense mood about Gogol wanting to change his name to feel more Americanized, but he also is still kind of close with his Indian culture.
I don't think it was just like tense between like cultures. I think it was also with like within himself, because it was just like he was so upset, like he didn't understand why they named him Gogol. Like he was just like, he obviously knew it was after the Russian writer, but he just like he made no connection to like from the writer to him, except that his dad liked him, because that's pretty much all he said. He was like, oh, my dad likes him, I don't. He had no interest in like reading Gogol. And then
I knew what Dad was saying on his name. He didn't really understand it at first, so like towards the end of the story when his dad explained it to him. But like kind of like Ashoki and Ashima, his wife, like at first they kind of struggled in America, like getting used to like America's culture and stuff like that, because like they had their own culture and where they're from. And then so like they kind of raised Gogol with the Bengali culture, and like it was hard for Gogol because like he understood the culture, but like he was struggling with it, like from American traditions at school too, like trying to like keep them together, you know, when it was one thing at home and something else at school with his friends.
So yeah, I mean that struggle is kind of throughout the whole story. The one example is like for his birthday, he had like an Indian birthday, then he had like an American birthday, and it said that like the mom, it was harder for the mom to like make food and prepare meals for like the American kids, because it says what does it say?
Well, like they're gluten-free and like
it's like who are all allergic to milk and like their crusts taken off their sandwiches, like just the American stuff, I guess, that we don't really think of. But like she had a hard time trying to adapt to them, and just the family trying to assimilate like with American culture is hard. And Gogol growing up like with, he's like knows both cultures, and I feel like it's the same thing that y'all were kind of talking about yesterday. It's like how you would identify with both cultures, but like you're not one, you're not the other. It's just you're kind of there and you're both. It's hard. Should we do the second question? Okay, yeah. So some literary elements I think he uses. Obviously, he's very descriptive and uses a lot of imagery, like always engaging the five senses and everything. But I think he also uses static characterization because, like, the characters are constantly changing throughout the story. Like, not only with the events that happen in their life, but like, I noticed how when Gogol was a child, he liked his name because they were trying to change it to like his good name instead of the pet name, but he didn't want it to change. And then, so his parents wanted it to change, but then when he was older, he wanted to change it, and because he didn't understand why his name was Gogol. But then at that point, his parents were like, "It's too late. Gogol's your name. You should keep it." And so it was like the feelings kind of flipped when they were older, and yeah, honestly, like, and a lot of flashbacks too. I feel like the story is just constantly, the settings changing, flashbacks. Like, I feel like it was honestly kind of hard to understand sometimes because I don't know where the story was. But I mean, at the end, you kind of like get the full picture. Any other elements?
I put mine as conflict, but not just like more of like cultural conflict like throughout the story, because it's just like at the hospital, like the doctor just didn't like care about what they wanted. They were just like, well, you have to name it now, unless you wanted to change it. But then he made it kind of hard on him because he was just like, oh, you're gonna regret it later. So pretty much cornering him into a corner and be like, oh, you have to name it now. And then at the school, when like he wanted him, what is it, Nikhil?
Yeah.
And he was just he told them that his name was Nikhil, and then when the teacher heard him say Gogol, he was just like, she was like, that's what he responds to. He needs to go by Gogol. And then it's just like Ashok clearly told her that he was gonna like warm up to the name, but then like Gogol comes back home with like a letter around his neck saying he's gonna go by Gogol by now from now on.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yes.
I see the opportunity here. You choose not to use your first name. You
Yeah.
choose your middle name.
Mhm.
Why is that?
I think it's in Mexico you usually go by your middle name. So it's like my parents never really thought they were gonna call me by my first name. They thought it was more of like, oh, she's obviously gonna go by her middle name. That's why. But people don't know where like Gabby comes from, but it's my middle name, Gabriella.
And so it's not because you don't necessarily like Ana Patricia.
It's not my favorite, but it's just like as I grew older, like when I was young, obviously like Gogol, you get so upset because it's just like as soon as like the first day of school, you see Anna Patricia written on your desk, and you're just like, my name's not Anna Patricia, it's Gabby. But it's like as I've gotten older, like I know where the name comes from, and so it's just like I've learned to like appreciate it, and I mean, I do like it now.
I'm very proud that I've never said Ana Patricia.
And they stutter it a lot, so it just makes me
Ana
feel really
Patricia.
bad, because it's just like Gogol that he knew when his name was coming up, he'd be like, here, that's how I was, I'd hear my name coming up and I'd just be like, it's here, my name's Gabby. I go by Gabby.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
That's like another thing I feel like is when he was older, he kind of like, he tried to understand more about his past and about the history of his name, but like his dad just didn't really tell him. Like he had no idea that his dad almost died in the train wreck, and like he didn't know the significance of the name Gogol. Not just that like his dad liked the author, but that like I think Ashoki said that basically Gogol, like the author in the book, changed his life or something, or saved his life in the train wreck. So yeah, I feel like it kind of goes with the theme, I guess, like going to number 3, that like I feel like it's always better for other people to know like the whole story for them to understand. Like waiting for the right time. I feel like that's what he was trying to do to tell him, but there's not going to be like a perfect time, you know. I feel like the other person deserves the truth of, like in general, but specifically of his past and like the significance of his name, because I feel like they could have just avoided the whole thing of him, because he legally changed his name to Nikhil, and then he finally understood. His dad told him like the whole story of the train wreck and everything like that, and then he felt bad like that he changed his name because he didn't understand, and they just could have avoided that if the dad would have just told him like the whole story. So.
Especially because it's like he felt really bad about changing it.
Yeah.
Like once he knew like where his
Yeah.
name came from, and then at like this end of the story, it's like he finally understood where his name came from, and then he was just like more like he wanted it to be his name.
Yeah.
He accepted it.
Exactly.
And I should say this in case you're ever curious, it's also on, it makes the rounds on HBO, recently it did it as well. It is a movie. Have you ever seen those movies with Harold and Kumar, the White Castle movies? Have you seen those? It's that actor. He plays Gogol in the movie. He's actually a really good role in it. So it's on HBO now and then. So if you ever like are curious, it's on there. The namesake. All right. Let me. All right. What you like about the discussion?
It was actually very interesting because there's a lot going on in the story. For instance, like you guys start off like telling us like what it's about and how it's like a cultural thing, which I feel like in here, especially because you're in a Spanish like class and learning about like culture-wise, it's interesting to know like different cultures and stuff like that. So just kind of understanding and like being open-minded about stuff like this is really interesting, and how it's like a battle within himself. So like Emma said, like he could have avoided all of that just by telling him, hey, like this is where like your name actually comes from. But I feel like sometimes parents like don't tell us things for certain reasons what we won't really understand, but they have their motives. So it was definitely very interesting.
Tessa, what do you like about it? Because you didn't get a chance to speak yesterday, that's why.
What I like about their story?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to see the inner conflict that people face when, especially, even though to some people it's just as simple as a name, but to other people it's their identifier, it's who they are, it's how, like the first thing they think of that defines them is their name, nothing else. So when you don't have that power, when you feel like your name is not your name, and you don't like it, you don't want it, it's something that can really hinder your perspective on life and how everyone else sees you, whether or not that's really the case. Like, my name's Tessa, I know my name is Tessa, but like some people, they could get my name wrong or they think it's Jessica, and that sometimes I'll get, not offended, but I'm like, that's not my name. Like, why would you even bother calling me that?
Jessica and Tessa?
Yeah.
You guys called you Jessica?
Yes.
Okay, you think it's like a shortening of Jessica?
I guess so. And I'm like, and then there's times where like, where did you even get that? But it's so, it takes people off guard when you call them by the wrong name, or you call them by the name that they don't believe they should be called. Because it is an identifier, it's something that we take, that we feel like we have control of. And when we don't feel like we have that control, or we feel like we are being constantly misunderstood because that's not the name we want to go by, it really just causes an inner conflict, which can lead to dysphoria, it can cause all sorts of things. It causes your conflict with society.
Because people mess up my name all the time, and like my name's like it's different.
But I have the doo-doo?
Yeah, so I have the 2 dots over my E, and half the time I kind of stop telling people that because they think I'm extra, or they're like, "There's no way that's your name. There's no way that's this," and I have to like sit there and explain it. Like, no, this is just replacing the Y. Like, and my name is Zoe. Like, it's not Zoe. Like, it's Zoe, but just with the 2 dots. And then my middle name is spelled differently too. And everyone still messes up my last name, don't know how. So like, my whole name is just different. And so it just gets tiring because people don't think about it as much because it's like, oh, this is what I'm gonna interpret it as, and then we're gonna leave it alone. Like Tessa said, like it's like you feel like they don't care, so then it's just like, well, why do I need to care? You're just gonna care. But I don't know, it just gets tiring after a while. It's tiring.
You probably want the people close to you to get it right.
Yeah, the people close to me know, but
Harley.
So that's actually in the story, like what Tessa was saying. Like towards the end, he changed his name. Like he went to court every year and he changed his name. And then like throughout college and stuff, like when you know he do like college stuff, like go to parties, like he had his different name and he just like felt weird because like he didn't identify with it. It's like
it just
it's
didn't
like,
feel right for him.
He said that he was like playing like twins, where it's like he's like
and like the name like had a totally different personality. Like each name had like 2 different personalities, and like the people at college knew him by like his name and like what he did with that name, but not with like Gogol and stuff, and like how he was a good student, like brought up in a good household and stuff like that. So he felt weird.
And because nobody knew that his real name was like Gogol, and even his parents started calling him Nikhil, like which is what he asked for. But he just, he like felt weird about it. And I feel like how the author portrayed that, it's like you felt weird reading it, you know? So that was like kind of cool. Yeah.
All right. Give them a hand. Nicely done.